building a mob farm is probably one of the most important things you can do in ATM 10, purely because it allows you to automate a lot of the resources that you need. However, at a certain point, you get too many of those resources and you no longer need them. What I've always done in the past is just sort of turn the mob farm off at this point. You don't need the resources, there's no real reason to run it anymore. However, what I want to show you in this video is how to convert a mob farm that used to be for resources and turn it into a mob farm that is the fastest XP generating mob farm that you can possibly build. I'm very excited about doing this. We're going to get a ridiculous amount of XP, which is incredibly important, especially if you're trying to automate all the mod stars at the very end of the mod pack. Plus, it's just kind of cool to do. If you need a lot of levels for doing anything with Apotheosis, this can be incredibly helpful. So if you're trying to maximize your XP generation, this is exactly the video for you. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Let's get into it. All right, take you guys away from the video, but if you're looking to host your own server at a reasonable price, look no further because we got a video sponsor. Verybyte makes setting up a Minecraft server as easy as possible with instant one-click setup that includes automatic backups, which is not something you get if you host a server yourself. They use incredibly fast Ryzen 9 CPUs to keep your game lag-free and offer server hosting locations all around the globe, so you don't have to worry about ping issues either. For using their servers and hearing from several other community members that have used their servers, I am incredibly confident that you will have a great experience. For ATM 10, I'd recommend getting a server that has at least 6 to 10 gigabytes of RAM, as that's the recommended amount. If you do run into issues, Verybyte makes it incredibly easy to upgrade the amount of RAM that you have. And on top of that, if you want to save a little bit, you can use code JohnHall to get $5 off at checkout, or JohnHall20 to get 20% off. Their link will be at the top of the description. Go check them out. Let's get back to the video. All right, just to kind of show you what we're working towards, this is going to be our end setup right here. In our XP holder that is set to pick up all of our XP, we currently have 466 levels in there. Now, I did just run this for a second, but we're going to turn this on. And I'm going to let it run for just a second. All right, so it's been 60 seconds. We're going to let those mobs finish running in there. As you can see, there's a ridiculous number of these corrupt lost souls out here. But I'm going to let it finish up what it's doing. And we are at 840 now in just like 60 seconds. So we're looking at like 400 plus levels a minute. So this setup is going to be ridiculous. Let me jump over to my build world and I'll show you exactly how I made it. All right, so here we are. First things first, make yourself a little 2x2 square in the center of wherever you're going to want to build this. And then we're going to go out 3 blocks on each side. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to put it here. 1, 2, 3. We're going to put a line here. We're just going to make this a big square real quick. Hopefully you're able to see exactly how many blocks this is based off of the fact that I'm using these chiseled stone bricks. That should make it easier. If it's not, it's just a 10 by 10 square on each side. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 blocks here and we're going to come forward 2 as well. To give us a little entryway here that the mobs can funnel into. And then once we've done that, we're going to clear out everything on the inside so that we can go through with these entity conveyors and place them all down as the flooring. Now, of course, what we're trying to do here is to funnel all of these mobs to the front area right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to face the opposite direction of where we want them to go. We're going to place all of these down going that direction. Now, once you get about halfway, you are going to want to start turning in a little bit so that way all the mobs start funneling to the middle and not just down to the end. And then finish filling it all in, push them all to right there, and you should be good to go. Next up, we're going to want to build up on top of where our pylon was before. Depending on the mobs that you're using for this, you're either going to want to go 2 blocks up or 3 blocks up. If you're just going to be using mobs that can fit under a 2-block height, then you're good to go. Creepers, pillagers, all of those should be able to fit under a 2-block height. The ones you need to worry about are wither skeletons and endermen. Those 2 will not go under this, and you'll have to go up a 3rd before you start placing down spawners. For the sake of this farm, 2 ought to be just fine for us though. So next up, we're going to be grabbing some of these monster spawners. For this tutorial, we're going to be going 5 blocks high with spawners, and then we'll come down here and we'll break the rest of these bricks down here so that way all the mobs can funnel underneath. Now, these spawners in particular are easiest to get in the dungeon and the other just because there's so many. However, if you're early game, in order to pick them up, you need to remember that you either have to have a cardboard box to move them or silk touch. Those are the 2 ways that you can just take an existing mob spawner and move it to wherever you want it to go. From there, we are going to modify these quite a bit. All right, so everything on my hotbar right now is basically what you're going to want to use on each of these spawners. To change what each of them spawn, you can use a spawn egg. Easiest way to get these spawn eggs are by using mob swabs on whatever mob you want it to spawn, and then turning that into a chicken feed, and then you feed it to a chicken and it basically blows up and gives you the spawn egg. It's a pretty simple way to do it, but it works really well. What we're going to do is we're going to start by using the redstone comparators on everything, so that way it turns them all off. So they're not spawning while we're still trying to build this thing. So they should all be off now. Next up, we're going to use wool on each one to make sure that they're quiet. Then we're going to use conduit to make sure that they ignore every condition that they would have. Then we're going to use chorus fruit on them to make sure that they don't have any AI. All of these first ones, you just have to use one. However, the last four, you're going to want to use as many as you possibly can. So we're going to go through and use as many gas tiers as we can on each one of these spawners to maximize their potential. Make sure they're spawning as much as they possibly can, as quickly as they possibly can. So that way we're getting our maximum potential XP that we can from this specific farm. All right, so once you're done to this point, you should have a min spawn delay of 20, a max spawn delay of 20, a spawn count of whatever it was by default. It should ignore conditions, have redstone control, no AI, and be silent. All of those things should be true by this point. Next off, we're going to use the fermented spider eyes to maximize how many entities will be spawning from each one of these. At max, the spawn count should be 16. Now, don't forget to set these spawners to whatever mob type you want to actually have spawn. For this video, we're just going to do a whole bunch of zombies because those will work just fine. Now, next up, you're going to need at least one, but I'm going to do 2 blocks on top of the spawners, and then we're going to build all of our walls up all the way to that height. To do this, I'm going to be using the builder gadget. It just makes my life a lot easier. Then I just fly up to whatever height we need it at, and we can build it up to right there. Now, this front little entryway here does not need to be quite as tall. I tend to make it 3 blocks tall, but really, if you're just doing zombies like I am, it only has to be 2. You are going to want to fill in around it like this. That way the zombies have somewhere to funnel in exactly 2. So next up, to finish the spawner part, what we're going to do is we're going to grab a nifty little tool called a redstone pen. Now this redstone pen allows you to put redstone on the sides of objects. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line all the way from the bottom one up to the top one, making sure it's all connected. And then we're going to cross over to each one of these as well. Then we're going to wrap around the side and make sure that we connect to each one of these on the back end as well. So hopefully you can see that well. Basically what we're doing is we're just wrapping this redstone around the center of each one of these spawners to make sure that there's a line that crosses the center. And then once we get to that point, on each one of the spawners, we need to click the center so that there's a dot in the center of each one. This will allow the lever to actually turn all of these spawners on and off since we added that redstone control. So make sure you go through, you click the center of each one of these. If you accidentally add more lines, it really doesn't matter. As long as the center is clicked on each one, you should be fine. All right, so we've got the center clicked on each one of these. I did it twice on this one. It doesn't really matter. All you need to do now is throw a lever at the top, and you'll see that it'll turn on and actually start spawning. Now, as you can see, I didn't really have a place for these zombies to go yet, so they're going to all burn up. So to go one step further, we're going to get this redstone remote. We're going to take it. Now, to link it, all you have to do is left click it, and then it'll save. When you click it on and off, it'll click that lever on and off. So now we have a remote controlled mob farm, which is the first step of turning all of this into XP. I'm going to grab a sword and clean up the mess real quick, and then we'll get to the next step. So we can turn this on and off remotely, and it'll funnel all of our mobs directly to here at the end, which is what we wanted to do. Next up, we're going to grab an advanced clicker from Just Dire Things, and we're going to set this right here at the end. We're going to render the area, and then we're going to move it backwards until it is covering this first block right here. From there, what we're going to do, we're going to increase the size by 1 so that it's taking this whole front area. And then we're also going to increase the height of it up to 1 and the width of it up to 1 as well, maybe just half. So ideally it should be taking up this whole front area here. We're gonna move it back so that it's just covering this front area and not the entryway. And then we're gonna fill in the rest of this with some viewer glass. That way we can actually see what's going on inside of there. And so this clicker is set to click anything inside of that area. And we do need to do a couple other things for this. We need to make sure the click itself is set to a left click and the target blocks is set to target hostile. In addition to that, we will need to provide this power. The easiest way to do that is through whatever power source you have, and then just use an ender gate and slap it on there, and it should provide power to it. Then we're going to grab an XP holder, which is also from the Just Dire Things mod. We're going to set that down in front. Now this one, we're actually just going to max out the size for, because there's really no reason to not. It is a little overkill, I'll admit it, but I would so much rather have all of the XP than to not. So make sure that you're up at the height it needs to be, and that it at minimum is covering everything in there, which it certainly is at this point. I could adjust the offset where the center of this is in there, and that's probably the smart thing to do. And then we can turn off the rendered area for both of these. So this will click and swing the sword that we're going to have to kill all of the mobs in there. We're going to want to decrease the speed of this to 1 tick. So that way it's clicking as fast as it possibly can. This is going to pick up all of the experience from it. We're going to want to make sure we have it set to ignored, so that way it just pulls all the experience in. We're going to have it set to collect experience right here. And then if we have a target level we're trying to stay at, all we have to do is set that here. I usually click this up to about 500. That seems like a pretty solid middle area for what I want to stay at constantly. Next up, there are 3 specific enchants that we're going to want to put on our sword. And we're going to want our sword to for sure be one that's unbreakable. So that way, you know, we're not worried about replacing it all the time. Ideally, you're going to put some sort of high level of sharpness on this sword. That's not one of the important ones, but it's something worth mentioning. The first one is to get Scavenger. Scavenger 3, all it really does is it allows the loot rolls for this to be rolled more than once. Then we're going to get a very high level of looting. The high level of looting, as I'm sure you're aware, just gives you more drops or whatever mob you kill. And then finally, we're going to grab Knowledge of the Ages 3, which turns all of the mob drops into XP. So we're going to dramatically increase the amount of drops that these zombies are going to have, and then all of those will be transformed into XP when they're killed by the sword. So let's combine all of those, put them on here. We're going to add that into our clicker. All right, so now when I turn this on, it should funnel all the zombies down here, and they should instantly be killed by that sword we created, as long as it does enough damage. And as they die, all of their mob drops get turned directly into XP, which is then picked up by the XP holder. As you can see, we're getting a ridiculous amount of XP exceptionally quickly. Like, this thing's been running for like 30 seconds, maybe not even that. We're already at 220. Now, there are certainly some ways to improve this. As you can see, it's taken some of those zombies several hits before they die, which means they're not dying as quickly or efficiently as they possibly could. Just as a test to sort of highlight what I'm talking about, grab the Quantum Sword, which has an infinite amount of damage. And we're going to grab those same Looting, Knowledge of the Ages, and Scavenger enchants, and we're going to put it on the sword, and we'll get this thing rolling again. Now, as you can see, the zombies are dying a lot faster. We're getting a lot more XP a lot quicker. Still, this is an absurd amount of XP that you're really never going to need. All right, so there you have it. There's the fastest XP farm in all the mods 10. You can add some upgrades to that, give it some sharpness, some extra upgrades to make it kill the mobs faster. But at its core, those are the key things you're going to need to make this XP farm. Now, like with every video, I don't claim to be necessarily the source of truth on these subjects. So if there's any way that you found to make this XP farm better, or to make just a better XP farm, please feel free to leave those in the comment section down below. There's a lot of people that need XP, especially for Apotheosis. So anything that you can leave down there is incredibly helpful. But that's going to do it for this video. Don't forget, you're special, and I'll see you guys in the next one.